he had brought too many people north of the river, they had to set the line up north of Bellingham where it is now. So if it wasn't for this guy, right now we'd be standing in 31. So he was important to our district. And so he's represented here. And on the other side, we have a statue of Mother Joseph. She came out here from Montreal, Canada, to work in schools and do missionary work among the native populations. And she started a lot of hospitals and schools. And she and her group started about 20 different institutions. And two of them are still, the buildings she constructed are still standing. One is in Colfax, Washington. It's now an old folks home. And the other one is, as you go into Portland on I-5, just before you cross the river, there's a big chimney with the word Academy. You may have seen that.
I've been in it.
That is the other one that was built by her. That's still standing today. And I think it's owned by a private group now that rents it out for wedding parties and gatherings, things like that. And so these are our two heroes. Now, her statue is in D.C., but it's at the visitor center near the Capitol. And of all the statues from all the states, she is the shortest, he is the tallest. They were going to complete the building starting in 1929. You may have heard about the last Depression. We didn't have much money. So we stopped basically construction of the building. 60 years after we completed the basic construction, we decided to paint the ceiling. So the colors here were put up in 1987 and 88. Before that, it was just white plastic, no color at all. Outside, we have hand railings. Those were put in about 15 years ago. Inside the other one, about 10 years ago. We just recently did a big upgrade for the heating, air conditioning, cooling systems, fire alarms, things like that. So it's a constant improving as we get the money. Right now, we don't have more money, so we have light bulbs we haven't changed yet for the last couple of years. When we constructed this, we tried to use material from Washington. So the main structure of the building is brick that came from Centralia, Washington. It was made. The exterior sandstone of the buildings all came from Wilkinson, Washington, over by Mount Rainier. The steps and the porch, a lot of pieces are granite from Index, Washington, north of Seattle. The plaster work came out of Moses Lake, Washington. The copper content for the bronze fixtures, the lights, the doors, the window frames came from Spokane. And this main marble in this area that you see, almost all the hallways rooms have this gray marble from Alaska. So wait a minute, Alaska's not part of Washington. Yes, it was. When we built this, Alaska was not a state. And the only way to get there was by boat from Seattle. So we thought Alaska was our colony. Okay, so we figured it was part of Washington. So you see, it's an old flag. It used to be green, but sunlight has faded that to a purple color. And you see George is wearing a military uniform. When we adopted our flag in 1920, we didn't use that one because he was a warmonger dressed as a general. The picture we used is a President Washington, not General Washington. So the League of Nations was being formed and all that. We had to go be politically correct and not show someone that was a military person in our flag. So we went with it. President Washington instead of General Washington. The flag over the other fireplace here has 42 stars. There's also 42 steps out front. We just, baseball players, they just did 42 for Jackie Robinson. 42 is a neat number. It's the number of state we are. We didn't join the union. We became a state after North Dakota, Montana, South Dakota. And they always fly the next flag on the 4th of July, the year after states come into the Union. So we got a whole bunch of 42-star flags ready to go to post offices and the federal capitol and schools and everything. Guess what happened the 3rd of July? Idaho became a state. One day. And a lot of states realized that Wyoming was coming in on the 10th of July, 1890, so a lot of places went about 44 stars. So there's not very many 42 stars around. This is original to over 100 years ago. They put the word out when we were having our centennial celebration. If anybody has anything that has to do with past state history, bring it in, we'll display it. And the family found this in an attic in Tacoma, in a house that was about ready to be destroyed for expansion of Interstate 5. So, and it was hung up in an attic, so the conditions were just right for the preservation of the flag. Most of the flags from that year were folded up and put away into trunks and dresser drawers, and they deteriorated over 100 years. Walls, if you look above the doorway over there, you see that large lunette. When we did our painting, they painted the triangles to kind of match the windows on the north and south. And then they used pink down here because pink, you see it's repeated up here in the corners. Pink is one of the few colors that complements gray. Pink, red, and burgundy kind of make gray pop a little bit. So, and then between the triangles and the pink area, it looks like marble. That's also painted. You can tell by looking right behind you here. So, yep, that is paint. Okay. Now, if you look way up past the chain, those tall columns up there, those are also painted to look like marble. Those are actually just steel I-beams on end with wire around them and then plaster and then painted to look like marble. So people once in a while say, where did you get that beautiful pink marble? Where's that from? They say paint buckets.
So the big columns are.
Yeah. So it's the same as, in fact, if you get up close to them, you can't go up there anymore, but it looks even, it looks kind of like miracles vein. It doesn't look like marble. When you're up close to it, it doesn't look like marble. Back away from it. Writing emails back to their constituents, or they might be doing some research on bills. Every member here and in the Senate can get a free state provided laptop, and almost every member here uses those laptops. And some of them, in fact, if you look at some of the desks, they'll have a little red tag. On that red tag it says no paper. They don't want any paper delivered to their desk. They want everything on their computer. And when they plug it in, it updates the status of all the proposed laws that are in the system. It tells where they're at, and they also can get into the internet, and they have their emails. So they